Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
And a good evening to everybody, and thanks for joining us tonight. Hello, chat room. I see all of you. If you've got any questions for either one of our guests tonight, go ahead and post them. Our producer will get them to me. And then, of course, everyone that's on the event pages, man, you guys are just pouring in there. Really appreciate the listenership. You are just... You're wonderful. You're absolutely wonderful. We will be answering questions that you have listed also on the event page. And so we'll try to get to everything. And I think we did a pretty good job last week of getting, and you guys had a lot of questions. You had about 40 questions last week, and I think we really nailed it. Alex Longman from the UK was on, and she did a spectacular job, informed us quite a bit on her activism in the UK with chemtrails. Tonight's going to be an excellent show. We have 2 guests this evening, so I won't be doing a monologue tonight. I'm going to go ahead and just race right into our guests. Our first hour, we're going to have Mr. James Gilliland from the Eceti Ranch, the UFO ranch out there in Washington. And, of course, I wanted to give you a couple of tips. Go ahead and go to the website. You can go to thetruthDenied.com. All the guests are always linked up on the front page. Go ahead and click the link to James Gilliland's site, which is eceti.org. And some of you have been asking about visiting the ranch. And if you go to eceti.org, there is a menu there that will guide you to an invitation. You have to be privately invited. It's a private invitation, sorry. And you have to set that up with James and his people out there. And of course, his invitation is always welcome. He loves for people to come out, but you do need to make reservations to do such a thing. Anyway, and I want you also, I'll find out when James comes on the show, but he also has his own talk radio show. I was on it once. He invited me to come on, and it's a wonderful show, real open and wonderful listeners on his show and callers. It's called As You Wish Talk Radio. And you can get that information off of James' website as well. And let me give you a little bit of background for those of you who have no idea who I'm talking about, which I find hard to believe because James is world renowned. But he is a minister, a counselor, and an internationally known lecturer, best-selling author with the books Reunion with Source is one. Another one is Becoming Gods, and, of course, The Ultimate Soul Journey. And James appeared in Contact Has Begun, his story, with the History Channel, UFOs Then and Now, and UFO Hotspots, ABC, Fox News, BBC, Danny Dyer special, Paranormal State, Eceti Ranch, a documentary. I would love to see that documentary. I don't believe I've seen it. And, of course, and the new movie Thrive have all featured James and Eceti, which he is the founder. I think I've heard just about every one of the shows that he's been on. A big fan of both. He's been on Jeff Rent's and to numerous other radio shows, just too numerous to mention right now. His talk show is located on bbsradio.com, so if you ever want to tune into that. And another website, and Contact Has Begun, which is worldpuja.net. He is a facilitator of many Eastern disciplines, a visionary dedicated to the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth, and teaches a higher dimensional reality, of course, from his own experience. And today we're going to focus around a couple of things. James was in contact with me last week, and I'm absolutely astounded about the experience he was having, but we're going to focus in on higher dimensional aspects of UFOs, and then, of course, the Archon network, which some of you are very familiar. I asked you about it, some of you listeners already. And then, of course, Wars in the Heavens, which we've all discussed. So without any further ado, I'd love to welcome Mr. James Gilliland. Hop on the show. Hi, James. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. It's good to hear your voice.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. So, let's just dive right into that. Wherever you want to start, I wouldn't mind if you could share the story of this Archon or Archon, I don't know how to pronounce it, network.
Yeah, Archon.
Archon, and what they are, and are they here on Earth, and how did they get here, and are they causing us some problems?
Yeah, they're causing real problems on the planet right now, and actually they've been the source for many of our problems over the, even in ancient times. But basically, what they are is it's a network of beings, and there's different types of beings in this network, and some, it depends on your discipline. If you're a Christian discipline, you just link them all into demons, or something like that, or the devil. If you're from India, you'd call them something else. You'd have different names for them, but and all the practices, they all talk about this network. The most ancient information we have about them is basically call them the Archon network. And what I found out recently in dealing with this network is that there's many levels to it. They've got regenerate ETs in there, some beings on the astral level that are really messed up. They've got some serpent beings on there that are really nasty. They've got quite a lot of going on, but right now they're being shaken up. They're being really rattled, and they're just doing all they can to hang on. And I know so many light workers right now that are just being attacked, on every level. They're even those closest to them, they're jumping in and coming after them and just doing some pretty cold-hearted, heinous acts. But so many people are emailing me. I'm just getting, and in my own life, I'm having those experiences as well. I've had them most of my life. I've watched on several occasions where somebody closest to me that I was very much in love with, just their energy go dark, their aura just go dark, and then I just got gut wrenched and hit right in the heart, and then they became somebody else, and I went, wow, what's this about? And I went and got some readings from some top psychics that I know that are very clear people, and it was amazing. They all came up with the same information, because this is so off the wall when you start bringing this information out that you think you're losing it. You go, man, if I had gone off the deep end here, this is just getting too crazy. But now I've finally got on top of this after about 3 really, really rough experiences, just full-blown attacks. I'm finally getting on top of it and finding out what the very bottom level, I don't want to say the top level of the Archon network, but I'm really dealing with the bottom level of the most darkest, venomous, creatures that are involved in this. But the best way to explain this Archon network is, one way of explaining it is the ladder of success. And people don't understand this, because what happens is, in order to climb the ladder of success, first of all, you're programmed by the network that you need all of these things. You have to wear certain clothes. You have to look a certain way. You have to do certain things. You have to seek everything externally outside of yourself. Love and acceptance and approval through outer appearances, through material acquisition. You have to buy the right car, the right beer, wear the right clothes, all of these things to be accepted, by society. And in order to get all those things, you start climbing the ladder of success. And so on the first rung, you might have to tell a couple little lies, do a few things that are kind of against your soul. You go, well, and then you talk yourself out of it. Hello?
Hey.
Wow.
There you are.
Yeah.
We're on the air. Okay, we're back on the air. Sorry about that. James, what are you doing?
Didn't we expect that? I mean, you cannot talk about this network and bring this information out without, I was on one show and they lost 6 lines.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, they said they go.
The night that I was on your show, which was, God, it was like a year ago now, all the lines went down that night repeatedly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, someone doesn't want us to get together. That's pretty obvious.
Darn it. I guess I'll just have to come out to the ranch, James.
Yeah, there you go.
And we could just talk, and nobody can stop us from doing that. So,
Yeah.
where were you? You were talking about the Archon network and
Yeah.
how to explain it, and you were
Yeah.
talking about that ladder of success, etc. And so from there, how do you explain how the Archon are? I think you were about to say how they're sort of operating here. I think that's where you were when we went to the ether.
Yeah. So basically, what you do is as you move up the ladder of success or power and wealth or whatever, what you'll find. I mean, very few people have actually made their wealth without harm to humanity, the earth, or in some way, oppressed somebody somewhere. But there are some out there. This isn't for everybody. But the way it went down is that as you go up this ladder, it just gets darker and darker and darker. As we have all seen, you get to the top of the ladder, and as we're seeing, the Pope is kind of going down. He went down. The Queen's down right now. All of the top of these ladders are starting to fall apart, and it's being dismantled basically from the top down. Mm-hmm. But by the higher dimensional beings that are getting involved now. But this Archon ladder, people don't realize it. If you take the military, I mean, how can you level a whole town, a whole city full of women and children and families and not have any care whatsoever, or kill pregnant women and things like that, and just keep going without any sense of remorse unless you're being inspired by something that is just heinous, with no respect for life or, any life basically whatsoever. But you'll see as you move up this ladder, you have beings that have actually sold their souls to the level where they're just taken over, and they're not in control anymore. This other energy, these unseen energies, are what's in control. And people go, that's crazy, that's conspiracy. And I said, well, look at the condition of your environment right now. Look at the condition of your society. Look at all the wars that are being escalated. Look at the loss of freedom, and joy and love. Look at everything that's unfolding right now. The banksters, look at what they're up to, and you can follow that network up and see obviously what's going on there. The height of greed and separation is going on there. They have no trouble just throwing people out, taking their jobs and sending them overseas and throwing them out of their houses and whatever happens after that. So I mean, you can see this network at play right now, and it's reaching the height of its darkness, you might say. And it follows into the Native American prophecies where they talk about the beast. And, the beast is 2,000 miles wide, and that's the rain. It'll rain for 2,000 years. And just when you think there's no hope left, where it's going to be dominating and controlling and consuming everything and destroying the environment and, and the whole enchilada, that it actually ends up consuming itself. It folds in on itself, and that's when the 1,000 years of peace come in, or whatever. So we're in that phase. But for as far as the reason I wanted to bring this out is just to let a lot of the light workers know that I'm just getting so many emails and so many calls going, what is going on? My closest friends, my mate, these people are just coming at me. They're coming unglued, and they're not the same person anymore. And I tell them, I said, well, there's two things going on. One, there's a huge vibrational lifting going on, and people's egos are just getting hammered, and they're acting out, all their old wounds and traumas and wrong conclusions from past experiences, and they're in that process. And two, this network is just having a frenzy right now because it's being agitated, and it knows it's on its way out. It's going out as well. So there's two things going on right now, and it seems like the light workers are taking the hardest hits right now. They're just being hammered on. And
why would they do that, James? Go after light workers like this?
Basically because they feed off the chaos. They feed off the pain and the sadness and the sorrow. And they don't want people in their own power. They don't want people making their own personal God connection. They don't want any of that because it actually takes away their food. That's one way of saying it. And the other thing is that we are going through an evolutionary process. That's a natural process where we're evolving beyond that, beyond those base energies. And this process is pushing all that up to the surface, along with the entities that inspire that and create that. And so you're in direct conflict with the world they want to keep together.
Right. You know what I was going to ask you with relationship to the Archon, because it's such a good example. Do the Archon show up? You mentioned the other dimensions, like they're sort of on all these different dimensional planes, probably in the dream time as well, I'd imagine, or slipping into people's meditations and so forth. Are they also visible? Like, with the human eye, are they visible beings?
No, I haven't seen them. I've seen them clairvoyantly, and a lot of other people have seen them. I haven't seen one take full physical form. They usually jump into people and manipulate people, and they're coming in from like the fourth dimension or some other dimension, in from the astral planes. But they, I'll tell you what's interesting is I was working with a fifth dimensional being. It was actually a feline being, and very beautiful, loving energy. And in India, they call them Narsringa. And in Egypt, the seventh dimensional ones were Sekhmet, and things of that nature, the more lion beings. And I asked this being, I said, hey, we're getting hammered here. We're getting attacked, what can we do with this? And I said, can you get rid of the top of the Archon network, or the nastiest ones? I said, can you like just get rid of these beings? They're just wreaking havoc on the ranch, on my own personal life and everything. And she said, no. And I go, what do you mean no? And she said, that's out of my league. She said, you have to call on the seventh dimensional one. So apparently these beings have been around forever. They're very ancient, and very few people can go up against them, especially if you haven't been severely trained in this area and you haven't led a life of impeccable integrity, and you're really doing your healing and meditation work like 24/7 and becoming the observer. If you haven't taken a life like that, you're not gonna do too well going up against these beings. But what she told me is I had to call in the much higher dimensional beings to deal with these, and so we did, and it is finally clearing up. But I mean, that was a lifelong lesson. I've had this happen to me several times throughout my life, and I tried everything I could. I called on Jesus, Baba G, Mary, all the beautiful many, hey, help me out here. I've got a problem, and I could not unhook this person from him. And so, but I'm realizing too is there's usually something in that person that, they've got to have a hook. They have to have a way in. So there's something in their character.
What do you think it is? Have you figured that out? What's the hook or that way into another being? What might you guess at your best guess?
Well, if you understand how the network operates and how programmed people are, by the network, and you can just substitute network with TV network, and you see how people are totally programmed by the TV. Everything is external. And it's not about, just the whole thing is external, acceptance and approval outside of yourself, outer appearances, wealth, everything. It's all external. And that's what it's made to do. It's to keep you in the sense gratification, the first three chakras, which are survival, sex, and power, and the physical, and keep you out of the heart and the higher levels of consciousness. And that's how people get hooked. If you haven't done your work and your homework and stepped out of that and spent enough time, in nature or out of the network or away from, doing your prayer and meditation time and things like that, they have a doorway in. And if you have old wounds and traumas, if you have childhood trauma or a lot of things like that, they actually utilize that as a gate or a doorway to come in.
Do people who are being attacked, do they know that this is what's happening to them? Or do they think, like what you had said earlier in the show, that they're just losing their mind?
Well, they usually don't know till after the fall. After
Hmm.
everything just goes to hell, they finally go, "What happened? How did this happen?"
Mm.
And they don't even know why they acted the way they did, or why these emotions erupted in them, and they're just really ashamed, you might say, or just like, what did I do?
It's you're describing something like it's like getting conned by a con artist. You usually don't figure
Exactly.
it out until after it happened. So,
Yeah.
and then you feel all of what you were saying, shameful and remorseful, and how come I didn't see that coming, or how come I didn't identify it? But then that's a good lesson though, because you
Hmm.
probably, once you have that lesson, then you at least know what you're up against
Exactly.
in the
And
future.
I know a lot of people will project their ideals and their belief systems and on another person who
Mm,
just may not have the same ideals and the same belief systems. And where you might have a real strong focus on integrity and honesty and loyalty and clear communication and things like that. The person you're working with may have a lesser focus on that, or that might not be important for them. And so it creates a conflict, where things out of integrity or disintegrous, or
sure.
actions, just you go, whoa, wait a second, like where'd that come from? And it came from just not seeing the best in somebody, seeing the potential, and not seeing the other stuff that was waiting there to come up.
That's a tough one. That's a life lesson, I'd imagine,
Oh
So,
yeah.
and like you were saying, this was really, this got to, for you personally, came into the ranch, came into your personal life now, and, tried to bring you down. And, I'm glad to hear that, you identified, the quote unquote enemy, and then are obviously working with other beings to, rid the ranch and yourself and your friends and family of this dilemma. But hey, listen, we've got to take a really quick break here, James, and
Sure.
when we get back, let's talk a little bit more about the ranch as well. You're listening to the Truth and I Talk Radio. I'm Roxy Lopez, and we'll be right back with our guest, James Gilliland. And we don't have a break. I don't know what's going on. We're supposed to have a break, and I thought we were talking into the break, but we didn't have a break, so we'll just listen to whenever a break starts popping in. So the
Okay.
ranch, now were these beings, like, how many would you say they came, like, in masses to the ranch?
Well, yeah, this is it's like a very sacred place. It's a power center, a power spot. And this has been going on for quite some time. I've had it happen, as I'm saying, quite a few times with people very close to me, which I love very dearly. And what happens is usually what opens the door is, we have a no drug, no alcohol abuse or anything policy here, but usually what happens is the old wounds and traumas that aren't dealt with past, combined with alcohol or any other drugs. Even smoking pot actually opens that up. A lot of people get upset about that, but it does. It opens up, there's higher dimensions you want to work with. But the it's usually some type of substance abuse, along with just some wounds that are so deep and so painful that they just can't go into them. And then that opens the door for these other energies to come in. And then all of that is utilized and focused on an external person or something. So that's kind of the process on how that works. And it's been going on for quite some time. And unfortunate to be here in the vortex and in this power spot here is that you've got to really, stand guard, and you have got to be the observer, and you have to always watch your emotions and your attitudes, and knowing that some of these aren't even yours that are being projected at you. And you have to operate basically under universal law and be, constantly keep yourself on vigil, constantly be kind and loving, and supportive and service oriented and honest, and all of those things, all of the basic principles that we all know. It's written in our heart of hearts. We have to constantly observe ourselves and say, oh, did we step off the ladder here? Hopefully we are stepping off the ladder of success, but where did we step? There's an old African saying, it's don't worry about the fall, go back to where you slipped.
Right. Yeah, that's repeating the same things over and over again anyway. So, same sort of thing. I just have to ask, when you were having this latest attack, was it scary for you? Because you're a pretty evolved being, and you handle a lot of things with grace.
It wasn't scary. I don't fear these beings. I've just gone toe to toe with them for quite most of my life. It was very painful.
Oh.
It's very painful when you really love somebody deeply, and then that shifts into the total opposite spectrum, and then those connections, those deep connections are there, and then all of a sudden they become a conduit for just the gut-wrenching heart slam. I mean, it's pretty painful. And part of me is just going, maybe I just need to be a monk, Maybe I just need to, there's certain times that, are just be a hell of a lot more discerning,
Sure.
Or something of that nature. But I would say I don't fear these beings, because having already died a couple times, and I have my own personal, connection with God or source, whatever, creator, whatever you want to call it. And I know, love's the ultimate power in the universe. And as long as I keep that flow going and that connection going, which is really what they want to do, they want to shut you down on energetically on every level. As long as I stay that as first and foremost, keep my eye single on that first and foremost, this is what I'm doing. That other stuff kind of gets unwound or unhooked and gets healed over time. But I'm not afraid of it, but it is painful. It's very sad and very painful when this happens. And I feel very sad for people that aren't strong enough, to avoid that or allow that to happen, or they haven't faced some things within themselves or haven't healed enough to walk a path of kindness and impeccable integrity and things of that nature. But I guess we're all learning, in this process. And, I'm by no means perfect. I'm the first one to say that. It's like we're all working out our journey. But I would have to say it's just one of the sickest heart slam things I've ever experienced. And you think after 3 or 4 times you'd learn, but
right.
I keep trusting. I'm just a very trusting person, and I have to I was told that they said you don't understand the 3-strike principle. You give them 20. And they said your heart is so open, you're so loving and compassionate, and it goes along with my sign as well, that you're just, that's your nature, and you don't know how to not to hold back. You don't know how to set a firm boundary. And that's one of my big lessons this lifetime is learning how to stay in love and stay in compassion, but at the same time set some real firm boundaries.
Absolutely. There's a couple of questions. I've just got to get through them if you don't mind.
Sure.
For a few people. Okay. A couple of people are sort of in the same ballpark with what they're asking. Hans was asking if there were more than 23 races of ETs here on Earth, and if that is true, where are they? Are they in underground bases? He's kind of just looking for like the where they are. And ETs that live among us, Ann Woodworth was also asking the same question that Hans did about the 23 races, but furthermore, she wanted to know, she thinks it's a silly question. I don't think any question is silly.
Yeah.
She wanted to know, are we just cattle to them? Do they eat us? And the reason why she's bringing it up is she says that she's wondering about what happens to, missing humans and missing people, and are we just part of the food chain? So both of them wanted to know, basically, are we dealing with a lot of races and are they eating us?
Yeah. Basically, I've never done a head count on how many races are here or coming and going. There are a lot of them. I don't know exactly how many. I just did an interview with Mary Rodwell, and I'm sure you know her. She's with the CERN over in Australia.
Yes.
And she has beautiful children that are coming in fully awake, fully connected. And I love what one of the children said about this. She said that she was given 3 books, and one to understand what was going on here. And one was the book with all of the higher dimensional beings, the masters, the angelic beings, the off-worlders, the advanced civilizations. And she said the other book was the green book, and that's all the nature spirits and, the inner earth people and all of those beings. And then the other book she was given was the book of the dark, the negatives, the regenerates. And what's interesting, she said that this, I guess, a serpent being came and stole the key from the black book and wouldn't give it. She said it wouldn't let her open it, which is probably
Really?
good. At 9 years old, I don't know if you want to learn about that stuff. You may not be equipped to deal with it, but and it was kind of interesting. But she was given a lot of detailed information. It was amazing coming out of this. I think she was a 9-year-old girl. And telling her parents detailed stuff. And she said, I came to help you. She said, you think you're here to raise me? She goes, I came to help you, And she talks about humanity. And she said, we're going to go through a phase of a couple years. And it's going to be intense. And she said, there is a war going on between light and dark here. And this is one of the last major hangouts. And she said, the earth is not destined to go down, the tubes. She said, there's so much invested in here by so many higher beings and races and terraformers and Pleiadians and Andromedans, and there's an Orion Council of Light and Arcturians and all of these beings. I'm sure I've missed a few. Are coming in right now, and they're saying enough's enough. They've been, the prime directive. They've had a hands-off thing, and they've tried to inspire us to go forward, but now they're just done with this network and what this network is doing to people and doing to the evolution of and the earth here and the environment. They're just fed up with it. So we are going to go through a huge vibrational lifting. There's going to be a lot of healing crises going on, a lot of changes on every level, but it's a good thing. And a lot of it is this whole network is going to be just undone. And the grid that supports this network and the unseen energies are going to be taken out.
Mm-hmm. It sounds beautiful. It sounds wonderful. One of the listeners, Katie Cruz, is asking, how does she contact ETs? Does she meditate? She's open-minded. She's seen crafts before, and she just wants to know what you recommend, James.
Well, if she's seen the craft, she's probably already connected. I mean, they're showing themselves to her to let her know. It's probably her star family, that's doing it. But the best way I found is there's an old saying: the consciousness in which you move with is the consciousness in which you connect, and so or the consciousness in which you seek is the consciousness in which you connect. So it's so important for us to raise our consciousness and, heal the past, release the past, heal the wounds and traumas and wrong conclusions, and just focus on the most loving, joyous, blissful event you can think of in your life, and then send that to them. They'll pick it up. They're extremely sensitive and telepathic, and they'll pick that up, and because of that, you're going to connect with beings on that level, on the higher level. But I always caution people: use discernment if beings coming to you and if they're telling you, how special you are and you're the chosen one and you're the Messiah, or they're telling you and you don't feel the love frequencies, and they're not talking about service and cleaning up our consciousness and our environment or things of that I would just kind of break off, because there are fake spirits, out there, and there are regenerate ETs. And so the first thing we teach people is how to heal unseen negative influences and how to make sure that you are working with the higher beings and safeguards, for pure communication and inspiration. And those are in the books, and they're in the book Reunion with Source and Becoming Gods. Both of those have those tools and techniques in them because they're so important for people that are awakening now.
Absolutely. DeB asks, would James Gilliland care to share his thoughts about Dr. Stephen Greer's documentary film, Sirius, and as well the small alien body that was analyzed?
I haven't seen the film, and I saw the body, a picture of the body, the little supposedly alien being, and to me it looks like something. It doesn't look alien to me. It looks like something from like the nature kingdom, and that is happening. Some of them get caught here. They come out of the inner earth, or they come out of different areas and they get caught here. It's the little people. Everybody has different names for them. Up here, there's people see the little people up here all the time, and there's a lot of different things going on up here. I mean, we have everything from Bigfoot to giant orbs flying around to strange.
I was just going to ask you about Bigfoot. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot?
Yeah, I have, actually.
What is that like?
Well, they're real. They're definitely real. I've had about 3 encounters here, and it depends on your consciousness. It depends on what they're doing in the moment. It's hard to explain. They're extremely sensitive beings. They're part of the nature kingdom. They're like the height of the nature kingdom. They're more human. Even the DNA testing they're finding out now, it shows them to be much more human than ape. They're very advanced beings, and they have some pretty advanced abilities. They aren't just a dumb ape. Everybody that's tried to track them and catch them and everything is actually
they're elusive. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They're extremely sensitive.
Right. And what's interesting about what you just said about them, that them being higher to, really higher beings. I've never seen anything that said that, any documentaries or things like that or Bigfoot shows. They seem to be non-aggressive. As a matter of fact, they seem to be wanting to avoid humans.
They're very shy. They're very
Is that what
sensitive.
it is?
Yeah, they're very sensitive. They're very shy, and they don't want to engage humans because nothing good has come out of it.
Oh.
The ones that they have engaged, I don't even like talking about it. And I won't tell people where it happened either, because I think that's their nation and their territory, and people need to stay out of it. But there's things that have happened here where some logging crews went into an area that they held sacred, and they actually threw like 50-gallon drums right through the cabin roof and destroyed the big tractors they had up there, the big cats. They actually threw a big giant choke chain thing, like a choker that they put the chains through it. This one threw it and hit the block of the tractor and just shattered it. So they can be aggressive. They can.
Well, it sounds like that was a perfect opportunity. It doesn't sound like they hurt anybody. So they're obviously very intelligent, waited for the crews to go away, then destroyed everything because, I mean, come on, let's turn it around. This was their sacred area, and somebody's coming in and thinks they're going to destroy their sacred area. So, I mean, I completely get it. What did the crews think, though? Did they know that this was Bigfoot, or were they just like, what the heck just happened here?
Well, the crew was there, unfortunately. I guess.
Oh, they were.
Yeah, and they didn't hurt anybody, but they, when you have a 50-gallon drum come through your roof of diesel, whoever threw that, is pretty big. And when you hear them screaming at you, and then your roof caves in and everything else, you get the heck out of there. And I actually met one of the guys that was on the crew, and he was still white. Like 3 days later, he was. He was still shaking and really shook up by it. And the elders,
large animal. I mean, or whatever they being, I should say, large being.
Exactly. And I ran into a female, and about 50 feet away, one of them, and I just looked at her, and she actually smiled and nodded at me and just kind of said thanks, but no thanks. We don't deal with humans. You seem like a nice guy, but I'll see you later.
Right.
And
Right.
I totally understood that. I go, I understand. I totally understand. With the way they feel.
Sure. Do you think that, James, part of our evolution, it's like a lot of the questions people want to know, like, have we seen crafts or UFOs land, or a UFO being walk into a house, or like a Bigfoot, ever seen one, got it on film? Do you think we're moving out of that mentality in our evolution to where one day we're just going to understand that all of this coexists with us, and we don't have to track all this stuff down anymore, that it just exists,
yeah.
that we're just a family, or whatever?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I've been dealing with that, with the UFO community, and I keep listening to people over and over, and they're still trying to prove they exist. They're still trying to prove there's a cover-up, and they're still trying to prove, and Roswell existed, and things like that. And I just go, my God, let's just move on now, because we've already made contact. We've made contact with multiple species. We know who they are. We know why they're here. And why don't we start bringing that information out? But it's censored. They want to keep it in the past. They want to keep the conspiracy part going, things like that. And I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, we do need to hold, some of the powers that be, their feet to the fire, and say, hey, you need to start coming clean with this. But it's such old news, and the reason we're censored so much in the UFO community is because we have the other information, and there's just a lot of jealousy and a lot of controlled opposition, and it's very infiltrated, those venues. And so you just won't see us there, even though we have probably the best documented place of UFO contact of anywhere on the planet, and it's internationally known and everything else. You just won't see us, in those. We're not even invited to speak in those venues.
And that's okay. I think I remember the first time I went out to your ranch, and I expected nothing. I always do anywhere I go, and I always get something. It's kind of funny, but it is a unique experience, the ranch. It's not just about what you see with your eyes, because there is a lot to see with just your eyes. At the same time, feeling. If you're real sensitive, like you are, James, or like myself, you start picking up beings around you when you're out at the ranch, and you can start talking to them, and it's really it's absolutely fascinating. So yeah, anybody who wants to go out to the ranch, I highly suggest it, for sure. I've got another question for you.
Okay.
Sorry. We would like to thank James for his amazing work in the healing of us all and the earth. I followed his work for some years and so admire his uncorruptible spirit and upbeat, optimistic messages. It's my dream to visit Eceti Ranch and meet the greater galactic family. And you too, Roxy, are doing a brilliant job of carrying the truth vibration. Thank you. And that was from Margie. So that's a wonderful thing. And
tell Margie thanks, and give her a big hug for me there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sometimes we need to hear that. I know. I just got through writing a chapter called the Incorruptibles or whatever, and talking about how there are people here that cannot be corrupted, and you can throw as much money and fame and notoriety as you want at them. They just can't be corrupted, and they stumble every now and then, but they might make a mistake here and there, but they always go back to service and their own personal God connection and their sole purpose for being here.
And that's going to be a wonderful chapter. I mean, that's going to be fabulous, because you know, even when you were describing that, I got choked up, because it's people like you, James, that you are not corruptible, and you're speaking from experience when you just said what you said. I know you are. Some people, you're absolutely right. We don't lie, we don't cheat, we don't steal, we don't want to have anything. It's like you said, sometimes people slip and fall, but they always move forward into real truer higher belief system, that they come here to the planet just awaken that. So, and at the same time, you'd said prior to that about some of the forums that you were just not even invited to speak in or be a part of. And it's sort of lonely, because the more that you become attuned, and the more like yourself, James, there's the less you're going to want to even participate in certain forums anyway.
Yeah, thank you. What I know too is that, what you're seeing in me is also within yourself, and I'm just mirroring that back to you. And I know you're one of the incorruptibles and leading the charge for truth out there too. And it's so important. I wanted to get a little bit into the higher dimensional beings right now too, because what's happening right now, people need to understand that there is a huge awakening happening. And a lot of us were from these higher civilizations in past lives, and we have family, in the stars. And there's major activations going on where people are just waking up everywhere, and they're going, God, I was in a dream. Like, they look around at the world they're in, and they're going, this just doesn't work. This is totally dysfunctional. There's no love and joy or bliss here. There's no service. I can't keep doing things that aren't in the highest and best good of humanity, Earth, and people are going through huge transitions, as more light is coming in, and it's shedding the light on this network, this Archon network. And the beings that are doing that, it goes all the way back to the source itself, whatever name you want to give it. But the source itself is pressing in. It's almost like we're being invaded by our own God selves, and our higher dimensional families, and that network is coming in. And there's so much activity right now on the planet that to help turn this planet around and get it back on course to be an Eden. That's what it was originally terraformed to be. It is an Eden where people take, physical reality to the height of its evolution and live a loving, joyous, peaceful life of abundance, in harmony with each other and the planet. But it got hijacked by this network, this Archon network. And that's what we're in the throes of right now. We're having a mass awakening happening. Some people are going back into the network and going back into the ego drive and the ego-driven programs. And other people are breaking out of the network and saying, I can't participate in this anymore. And it just seems like the polarities are getting really strong right now. People are choosing, and making choices and actions that have consequences, and having some real hard lessons right now by denying their own light and their own God connection, you might say, and their own spiritual families, and that's what I'm seeing over and over, is that people are just getting hammered, and it's all because of the ego drive and the resistance to this process, and not making their own personal creator God spirit connection first in their life, and then living in harmony with each other and the planet, and just stopping this separation game that's going on. And so that it's a combination of things. One, the ego is just getting hammered, and two, the Archons are getting hammered right now, and they're trying to create as much chaos as possible. But the good news is that this is all eventually going to be healed. And we are going to move into the next dimension, you might say, or the next level, and we need to just really do our parts down here. It's not all going to be done for us. We all need to take responsibility, for our choices and actions and how they affect others in the planet, and start moving in a higher direction, you might say.
Absolutely. Do you think that most people are good people, loving people?
I want to believe that. My problem is that I always focus on the potential and the higher good in people and try to pull that forward. A lot of times I get bit by the lower potential when it comes up, But I do think most of humanity, the 99%, I think most of them are good. A lot of them have just been programmed, by this network, and they're breaking out of the program. And they're awakening, and they're starting to realize, I cannot do this old program anymore. I can't involve myself in the obsession with the external and act in ways that are harmful to humanity, the earth, and my own soul evolution. It's like people don't realize they're screwing themselves. They think they're hurting others and gaining, whatever material wealth and power and things like that, but they're really damaging themselves in all of these actions and creating more karma. And in the end, it's the worst thing that they're losing is soul evolution in the whole process.
That's very key, soul evolution. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, because when you were just talking about that, I was thinking, God, I wish we had a recycling plant or something. We could, take these people. They would not put, no, and no offense to anybody listening, but put these souls through a recycling sort of program and come out better, or new, whatever the deal is. But and because when I say that, I mean, this is collective. So, you just said it. What affects you affects me, and what I do affects you. And believe me, I too, I'm like, I'm not perfect. I get mad. I get this. I get that. I misunderstand things. Communicate wrong sometimes, whatever it may be. I have to say I'm sorry a lot, Okay. But but at the end of the day, what you just said, this is a collective experience. So, it's like we're one big pot of soup, and if somebody wants to decide,
Well, there's an old saying. I love what Muhammad said. He said, "There's no perfect man on the planet, only perfect intentions." And so whenever you're dealing with other egos, and other people, with different drives and programs and things like that, all you can do is try to come from a place of really good intent and pure intent. But the outcome may not always come out the way and you have no control of that. I had a joke the other day. I was calling it the divine right to stupidity, but somebody told me that's really judgmental, and I said, no, I'm just joking. But there is a divine right to free will, and some people are directing their wills they're directing their wills to take these train wrecks, and we have to stop trying to save them, and just let them have the train wreck.
Let it be.
And get on with their own evolution, because that's where their free will has taken them, and they need some very hard lessons, and that's the way they need to go.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. You just start getting more into acceptance, don't you? You stop trying to control it all. It's amazing. It's always an inspiration, and I believe. I got to tell you something real funny that's going on this end. I don't know where the breaks are. We usually have them at 27 and 57, so we just passed another break. I don't know where our producer went, and I don't know where our break is, so I don't know what's going on. I guess we're just supposed to talk and talk and talk. Whether she's going to say something. We really are going to take a break any second. So eceti.org is where everybody can find you, and anything coming up in the very near future that you want people to be a part of, that you're going to be doing or speaking or seminars or anything like that?
Well, I'm actually working on a thing in Yelm, Oregon. There's a Yelm Theater, and I'm going to be doing a talk there. And I believe it's on the weekend of the 19th. I don't have all the details yet. And there's a few other things. But the best way to get in contact with this is go to eceti.org, sign up for the newsletter.
We've all discussed. So without any further ado, I'd love to welcome Mr. James Gilliland. Hop on the show. Hi, James. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. It's good to hear your voice.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. So, let's just dive right into that. Wherever you want to start, I wouldn't mind if you could share the story of this Archon or Archon, I don't know how to pronounce it, network.
Yeah,
Archon, and what they are, and are they here on Earth, and how did they get here, and are they causing us some problems?
Yeah, they're causing real problems on the planet right now, and actually they've been the source for many of our problems over the, even in ancient times. But basically what they are is it's a network of beings, and there's different types of beings in this network, and some, it depends on your discipline. If you're a Christian discipline, you just link them all into demons, or something like that, or the devil. if you're from India, you'd call them something else. You'd have different names for them. But, and all the practices, they all talk about this network. The most ancient information we have about them is basically call them the Archon network. And what I found out recently in dealing with this network is that there's many levels to it. They've got regenerate ETs in there, some beings on the astral level that are really messed up. They've got some serpent beings on there that are really nasty. They've got quite a lot of going on, but right now they're being shaken up. They're being really rattled, and they're just doing all they can to hang on. And I know so many light workers right now that are just being attacked, on every level. They're even those closest to them, they're jumping in and coming after them and just doing some pretty cold-hearted, heinous acts. But so many people are emailing me. I'm just getting, and in my own life, I'm having those experiences as well. I've had them most of my life. I've watched on several occasions where somebody closest to me that I was very much in love with, just their energy go dark, their aura just go dark, and then I just got gut wrenched and hit right in the heart, and then they became somebody else, and I went, wow, what's this about? And I went and got some readings from some top psychics that I know that are very clear people, and it was amazing. They all came up with the same information, because this is so off the wall when you start bringing this information out that you think you're losing it. You go, man, if I had gone off the deep end here, this is just getting too crazy. But now I've finally got on top of this after about 3 really, really rough experiences, just full-blown attacks. I'm finally getting on top of it and finding out what the very bottom level, I don't want to say the top level of the Archon network, but I'm really dealing with the bottom level of the most darkest, venomous, creatures that are involved in this.
Spectacular job. Informed us quite a bit on her activism in the UK with chemtrails. Tonight's going to be an excellent show. We have 2 guests this evening, so I won't be doing a monologue tonight. I'm going to go ahead and just race right into our guests. Our first hour, we're going to have Mr. James Gilliland from the Eceti Ranch, the UFO ranch out there in Washington. And of course, I wanted to give you a couple of tips. Go ahead and go to the website. You can go to thetruthDenied.com. All the guests are always linked up on the front page. Go ahead and click the link to James Gilliland's site, which is eceti.org. And some of you have been asking about visiting the ranch. And if you go to eceti.org, there is a menu there that will guide you to an invitation. You have to be privately invited. It's a private invitation, sorry. And you have to set that up with James and his people out there. And of course, his invitation is always welcome. He loves for people to come out, but you do need to make reservations to do such a thing. Anyway, and I want you also, I'll find out when James comes on the show, but he also has his own talk radio show. I was on it once. He invited me to come on, and it's a wonderful show, real open, and wonderful listeners on his show and callers. It's called As You Wish Talk Radio. And you can get that information off of James' website as well. And let me give you a little bit of background for those of you who have no idea who I'm talking about, which I find hard to believe because James is world renowned. But he is a minister, a counselor, and an internationally known lecturer.
Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
And a good evening to everybody, and thanks for joining us tonight. Hello, chat room. I see all of you. If you've got any questions for either one of our guests tonight, go ahead and post them. Our producer will get them to me. And then, of course, everyone that's on the event pages, man, you guys are just pouring in there. Really appreciate the listenership. You are just... You're wonderful. You're absolutely wonderful. We will be answering questions that you have listed also on the event page. And so we'll try to get to everything. And I think we did a pretty good job last week of getting, and you guys had a lot of questions. You had about 40 questions last week, and I think we really nailed it. Alex Longman from the UK was on, and she did a selling author with the books Reunion with Source is one. Another one is Becoming Gods, and of course the Ultimate Soul Journey. And James appeared in Contact Has Begun, his story. With the History Channel, UFOs Then and Now, and UFO Hotspots. ABC, Fox News, BBC, Danny Dyer special, Paranormal State, Eceti Ranch, a documentary. I would love to see that documentary. I don't believe I've seen it. And of course, and the new movie Thrive have all featured James and Eceti, which he is the founder. I think I've heard just about every one of the shows that he's been on. A big fan of both. He's been on Jeff Rentz and to numerous other radio shows, just too numerous to mention right now. His talk show is located on bbsradio.com, so if you ever want to tune into that. And another website, and Contact Has Begun, which is worldpuja.net. He is a facilitator of many Eastern disciplines, a visionary dedicated to the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth, and teaches a higher dimensional reality, of course, from his own experience. And today we're going to focus around a couple of things. James was in contact with me last week, and I'm absolutely astounded about the experience he was having, but we're going to focus in on higher dimensional aspects of UFOs, and then, of course, the Archon network, which some of you are very familiar. I asked you about it, some of you listeners already. And then, of course, Wars in the Heavens, which